It's essential because if you think about that ideology, that mantra you just said, and you compare it to the European male in the United States of America who's had it his way for the last, what, 250 years. I had a friend. Okay, what happened?
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh, okay. Somebody hit me. Okay, yeah, yeah. But let check this out. I had a friend that he was in when I moved. When me and my wife got engaged and got married, we moved to Memphis. And my friend from Birmingham with just finished medical school, and he got placed in residency at University of Tennessee Medical School, which is in Memphis. So this young man, black dude, real smooth, had a nice car. You know what I'm saying? And this dude's a damn gonna be a what do you call them folk? A radiologist making $500,000 a year. And me and him sat down and had drinks one day, and he was like, "Man," he's like, "Big A," he was like, quote, he's like, "Man, we had to be taught to have game." He was like, um, "White boys don't even have game. It's just showing up, like just just that power, that
Can I buy you a drink?
no, it's not like it's hard to explain what I'm trying to articulate. But I went to a PWI high school and I saw it over and over again. Like we had to, in the long run, it helped FBA boys because we had to actually learn how to talk to females. Actually, had to learn how to have confidence. But the system just it was like default that if you showed, and what used to piss me off in high school is some of them white guys that we played football with that had no game would get real pretty black girls just by default. And I'm like, man, we've been trying to talk to her for, but I think it's an element of, it used to be an element of fear there. I don't know what it is. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing aligned it to, and this is gonna piss a lot of y'all off, but I agree with Dr. Welsing on this. She aligned it to the alignment of God with the likeness of a white Jesus Christ, like Dr. Which the holy book the holy books don't say that Christ was white. They say just the opposite, hair of wool, skin of burnt bronze. But I'm not really a biblical scholar, but I digress. But Dr. Cress Welsing said that just having a white likeness of Jesus the Christ or a white deity that people call God just made you immediately on a deep subconscious level bow down to white skin. That's what Welsing argued. And coach, what you got?
I told you, man, you gotta take into account her
No, no,
bias.
you're free to
She was married to an
elaborate, bro.
African Ghanaian. There's no
Okay.
listen, man. This is why we gotta dig into the biases of the authors that we study. Where they getting their perspective from. She not getting that
How would you
from
say?
us here on this soil. My grandparents and parents didn't fucking raise us. Why you think it's called the black church? like like the Deacons for Defense and Justice out of Louisiana came out of the black church. World War I veterans. That's how it passed. But because
So
of
you think Dr. Welsing have
same
bias?
shit we saw in California with the congressional the California legislative black caucus. Motherfuckers with titles feel entitled and they want credit and the glory. Nah,
Well,
she
it's
getting that perspective not from us, from them. They got a whole goddamn statue on the continent of fucking Africa of a tribe
oh
like
no, no, sir,
Neanderthal
coach.
fucking Jesus.
I hear what you're saying, coach. And maybe
Yeah,
I wasn't
take
clear.
that into account. Like that ain't
Maybe,
us.
maybe I
We
wasn't
fucking had
clear,
no.
coach.
We
I
didn't even
wasn't
have no
clear.
white Jesus pictures in our fucking house.
Well, I'm from the South. We did, and in the South, in Birmingham, Alabama, right now, you go to Baptist churches in Selma, and it's a white likeness
Oh
of Jesus the
boy,
Christ.
I didn't know
Well,
that.
Go in there
oh
and tear
yeah,
that
yeah,
shit
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
down.
no.
Good
Also in
times,
Memphis,
good
Professor,
times,
that
Yeah, that shit
good
that
is
has a
still
times.
song.
Can you
That
hear
shit
me?
is still
Oh,
out
oh,
there.
hold on. Somebody's trying to. Was it
It's
Juicy?
me.
Come on, Juicy.
No, I wanted to also add to what you said. Oh, hey, everybody. Peace and power to the fam in the space. Shout
Hey,
out to Nikki,
Hey,
the
Juicy.
God, and the beautiful Wani. Thanks,
peace.
Professor, for allowing me to speak real quick. I just wanted to make a comment in regards to the statue of Jesus in Memphis on the corner of Winchester and I believe Hickory Hill Road. There is
Oh
a
yes.
huge statue of Jesus, that's like the Statue of Liberty, right? But it's
Yep.
Jesus and he's holding a Bible and a cross instead of the flame, right? And as soon as you hit the corner, you see it like it's huge. And the brother that said that there is a statue in Africa, it's in Senegal, which I absolutely do love. That statue, it is a statue of a black family, like an African family, the black man, black woman, and the child, pointing to the west. So I that's the only statue that I know about like that, and it's in Dakar, Senegal. But yeah.
That's so
Y-
weird
y-
because Jesus and Mary is depicted as black and in Russia and in the Vatican. Not all of the statues, but the good ones. The good ones.
Yeah, the largest are the most popular ones. Um, they don't look white at all or have white European features.
And you know what the white guy told me? He says, I said, look at that Jesus is black. And I'm right in the middle of Russia. He goes, that's candle soot. I was like, you're on massive amounts of crack. That is not candle soot.
Mixed with codeine.
Henderson is crazy.
Baking
It was
soda.
not.
I got baking soda.
It was like the hair
Oh,
and
not the
everything was.
glass dick, Wani.
Yeah. It was sad because nothing else was covered in soot. It was so you mean the candles had just accidentally covered the faces of everyone but left the outfits and hair? Okay, fine. You win. Um
Yeah,
oh, did you want to say something?
yeah. I just wanted to clear it up for brother Coach. All I'm saying is Welsing's theory. I think is some credence to Welsing's theory
Can you
of
hear me?
psychological. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, psychological warfare with respect to skin color, and that was just one example. I think we've been propagandized, and I understand you're from Philly, and good for you
Yeah, we don't
because
we
my
have
grand
an attitude up in the north because my mother's from Philly, my father's from Ohio, and they would not do that. They would either say, I mean, like the issue is that Arabs invaded that land in the 7th century. So
Exactly.
there's no way that the people in that book at that time would look like that. Even if you say, okay, well, that's not the original book, we'll go back to the Ethiopian and Egyptian versions of the book. They're still not going to be white, and that an Arab invasion still wouldn't have happened. So we're not going to be looking at that. But I will tell you now that when you ethnically brand a religion, it does something to your mind. When I close my, if somebody says, think about Jesus and close your eyes, I see a white man. It doesn't matter how many Afrocentric guys say Jesus is black and show me a guy with an afro. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen a long haired black guy. I still feel like that's ethnically branded. I feel like they've really done a good job of ethnically branding it.
Yeah, they
They
have.
it
They
it,
have.
it does something to your mind. It's on a subconscious level. It's just in there. Just like if I close my eyes and think about the Buddha, I know that they have Buddhas with cornrows. I intellectually know this. I have
Yep.
seen the cornrows. I've seen the skin, but my mind goes to the whiter chubby one. The same thing with the prophet. And this is just, I can't help it. It's just, I'm just telling you what my actual mind goes to, even though I intellectually know that's not true. And
and that's what Dr. Welsing said. She said the brain computer recognizes it in the way Wani said, and it's a weapon. And I hear what Coach is saying because my cousins are from DC, and we would they just my cousins are dark deep. dark, beautiful chocolate, but they couldn't understand my point of view. They couldn't understand me and my little sister from Alabama, and when because y'all are different up there. Y'all have y'all are more aware. But what I'm saying is that psychological attack of a white likeness of an almighty God really does something to the mind of black children who grow up in the deep south like myself. And it has young ladies, the cutest black girl at the school, that the brothers are rapping to, the white boy who the kicker on the football team just sits down and she says, "Oh," it's like God just sat down
Let
next
me
to her, and it's
let me.
unfortunate.
But
Can I push
can we
back
add
on
in
that
the
a little
term
bit?
hypergamy?
Can I
And
can
I,
I push back on?
Oh, okay. Let's go to Andy and then Andy.
yeah, I just wanted to add that in with what Coach was getting at and what you were getting at as well in that conversation, that there is such a thing as hypergamy. And I think we're all affected by that in our society. But just like Coach is saying about, and Wani is saying about the psychological conditioning, don't you think that this is what creates this mental bifurcation that Black Americans have with religion, with
Wow.
society? That they over and superimpose on our psychological conditioning that everything good is white and everything bad is black. But we wrestle internally with this notion that God cannot be white. Jesus cannot be white. Now, I'm just saying this is just a hyperbole, hypothesis, but it's no way in the world that when I close my eyes and I think of my a dream man and he's chocolate, right? And then I think of this all powerful God and he becomes white. And so I think this is part of that bifurcation.
Is somebody talking? Because I can't hear.
Oh, sorry, y'all.
Yeah, Andy's talking.
And I think this is
Okay, I'm gonna drop down. Can you add me
I'm
back
gonna bring
up?
you right back.
And I think this is what coach is saying. You know, it's like okay, it angers him to even hear this from a standpoint because of our lived experience. But I do believe that we all in this country wrestle with that. You know, I mean, I know I do as well
I
because Jesus. I say Jesus, but when I'm thinking of the Jesus that's going to help me, I can see him coming out of the cotton field. Do you understand what I'm saying? I can't see him coming from Greece. I can't even see him really coming from Israel because if he's going to be fit to help me, then I agree with the Jesus that is a carpenter that works with his hands. Um, that has feet like brass and hair like wool. Then you'll see this picture with this blonde hair, and I think this causes this. What am I going to say? This always unsettledness within us.
But they had to do that because that's how white people work. If they can't have it looking like them, they know they're not going to worship it. Just like all the music genres, they can't just like us playing the music. They have to get an Elvis version. They can't like the Jackson 5. They have to get the Osmond brothers. They can't like the people that are actually doing these things. They have to have a white version of it. And that's what, we've been victims of that propaganda.
You know what, one when you say the Osmonds like that, that shit fuck me up. You know what? Don't say the damn Osmonds. That shit is funny.
They tried it.
Come on, Andy. What you got?
Yeah, man. I just want to give a
What
little
Alex.
about the
pushback on.
carpenters? What about the
Go ahead.
carpenters?
Yeah, I just want to give a little pushback on what you were saying about like I was at a PWI high school and I did PWI college 1 year, but I'm gonna say that most of the black people were like we was all together. You might have a few swirlers, whether it was men or women, but the majority of us,
What's PWI, brother? I'm sorry. I
predominantly
just want. I
white
didn't know what
institution,
PWI was.
predominantly white institution, just like yeah, predominantly white institution. So we, kind of stuck together. Like the majority of us, like we stuck together. Like I never really had a problem in identifying with who I was gonna date because I knew not to really touch none of them white girls. Or it was so many beautiful black women at my high school and uh little college I went to. I didn't, you know, really want to. I might have seen them there because they were so prevalent and plentiful, but I didn't. I never really had a desire to. The black women were so beautiful to me, like I didn't want nothing else, and I was pro black in a very young age, so I never really. I always looked at them as the damn enemy. To tell you the damn truth, I ain't really had that problem that you talking about. You know what I mean? But because I was really into women like that and black women at that, so I just didn't. I didn't. I ain't gonna say I was scared to fuck with a white woman, but I knew that shit won't. You know what I mean? On the up and up, and then the how racist the South is here in North Carolina, I just didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like a no go for like a long time. That shit is like recent. Like I ain't gonna say the swirling shit, but like after the 2000s, kind of for me. Even though people were doing interracial shit back in the day, but I'm just saying like it won't really like it became like an epidemic almost like after the 2000s, like for me, from what I saw, in my college years. But I'm gonna just say, I was super pro black then, so I really didn't have that issue in deciding who I wanted to, you know, cohabitate with, just for me as a man.
Righteous. I just want to
Okay.
put that in context. The context of this is we're trying to figure out why racist incels shoot up schools, and what I was positing is that uh, the society has aligned the likeness, the picture of God, with a white man, and on a deep psychological level, that's given them a lot of power of persuasion, power of influence, and when that power is just taken away from them, kind of abruptly, and girls don't want to talk to you all of a sudden, a lot of them are reacting in a dramatic way. Um,
I was just going to say
I-
something real quick before we move to the next person. Another issue is that white men, this system is really destructive for them because they're used to just having money and having people to know that they've got the money. That's their come on line. I've got money, and you guys have been gossiping about the money that I have. They don't have to do anything. So their whole dating thing is different than ours. But as you can see, if they don't have any money, they end up being bitter incels. And like I said, we're just getting more and more and more and more of these guys. The girls don't like them because they don't have any money. The weird thing about Elliot Rogers is that he had money. He had famous connections. He had a lot of things. He had nice clothes. He lived in a nice house. And what it came down to was that some of his issue was that he was just crazy, to be honest. And his father failed him because his father knew that he had a psychological problem of wanting to look white like his father. And he didn't do anything about it. I mean, the kid was not an ugly boy. He wasn't an unattractive child. He had an Asian mother, and his father, I think, had blonde hair and blue eyes or something like this. He wanted to look like his father, and he resented not looking like his father and felt that he was unattractive. That's a failure on his father's, because he knew that. He admitted that he knew his son felt inferior and ugly because he didn't look like him, and he wasn't ugly. So you can see he was emotionally damaged by having that white man as a father, wanting to look like him and looking like a combination of his mother and father, and he just assumed that all the girls didn't like him and shot him up. They didn't dislike him. He didn't even try. And so he's another example, but he's the exception to the rule because he did have the money, but he was psychologically damaged.
I want to quickly drive that point home before we go to womanizer, um, with some scholarship. So keep in mind the paradigms that we just discussed, and let's look to our sister Dr. Frances Quest Welsing, Papers, page 186, last paragraph. She says, "Quote." Unlike black and other non white peoples who killed animals for food and shelter purposes, the white collective engages in this activity as an obsessive sports and play. By using the gun, parens, the great equalizer, right? The new penis, against helpless animals, they attempt to achieve a sense of manhood and security. A fleeting sense of manhood can be achieved by a European male sports hunter because in killing the large black or brown animal, parens, the symbolic non white male, there has been a symbolic destruction of that major threat of European genetic survival. So I'm positing that little excerpt from her masterpiece to support why some of these incels are shooting up, you know, shooting black. It's
Hot
a
damn, that's some high powered shit right there.
But can we
yes,
talk
it's
about
potent, isn't it, man?
can we talk about how they feel the need to perform masculinity, while black men feel the need to embody masculinity, and the difference between that.
It
Wait,
go
did
it goes
she
back
say
to the religious.
inform or perform? Andy, did you say inform or perform?
Go ahead, Andy.
Perform. They perform. It's
Perform.
yeah.
Okay.
It's my Oklahoma accent. I'm sorry. It's a
No.
they feel the need to perform masculinity, while
Okay.
black men feel the need to embody masculinity. And so, if you contrast those two things, once again, one is internal and one is external. I feel they suffer with a lot of anxiety because um, for them, masculinity is performative. It's the outward thing. It's what I have. It's who I can bully. It's who I can dominate. It's who fears me. But for black men to embody that, we say things like it's my swag. It's how the women swoon. It's how other men relate to me, and do they validate my masculinity based on you know I'm not a man, so I don't know exactly how black men, interact with each other. I'm just observing from being in a lot of male dominated spaces like the Marine Corps and sports and things like that. I noticed that black men worry about if they embody that. If you know how they'll always say you got a little sugar in your tank. Well, that's a sense of something that men are sensing in other men as far as weakness, but it doesn't have anything necessarily to do with possession. It's the internal thing that we judge our men by. And so I think it's another reason for their anger when they don't have the outward accoutrements of white masculinity. They're very violent and they're very dangerous.
Very violent.
Womanizer, what you got? Good point,
Okay,
Andy.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
All right. If I'm kind because I see the topic. I see is why do incels shoot up schools, but I guess I'm trying to like make the correlation of what's the correlation with like attraction and white kids and black men. Like I'm guess I'm trying to be brought up to
We're
speed on
just
that real
trying to
quick.
explain the psychology of white men that don't have the money to start families and they're not going to be successful and girls don't like them, and how they end up shooting up schools. They don't just accept their lot in life. And the like I said earlier, the economy is not going to get any better, so they're still going to need double incomes. They're not going to be able to just get a small house and attract a woman and start a family. So they're going to have to find somebody that they can't manipulate with money, somebody who's willing to have equal money with them, someone that likes them. They're not used to being put in
Got
this
you.
position.
Got you.
Where,
Okay.
whereas black men, as you know, we're the opposite. We never had money, and we had to rely on some of us got money, that's fine, but initially the vast majority of us had to rely on, what I'm saying, confidence, and we did it want to say hard way, but I'm gonna go ahead and say the right way. So now that the economy is ass over in, a lot of the male members of the dominant society don't know how to deal with that rejection because they're used to just getting it just off a look at my car or my daddy has this.
Mhm.
Okay, this is great for me to break down real quick. Before I get into what I want to say, I just want to say, Professor Wani, Nikki, the God, you guys are all great hosts and co-hosts. But I just want to say to the space, y'all got to start landing these planes a little faster, cause it's people kind of getting in here and just kind of rambling and babbling, and y'all be being nice and not, y'all let people talk, but y'all got to get in here, say what y'all gonna say, and land these planes.
Dang.
Um, excuse me.
Hold on, they
The next
just
thing I want to
chilling. They
say
can't chill in their
is,
space.
uh,
Put a name
as
on it.
far as
Don't
the
make it feel
Nah,
like it's
don't do it.
us.
Don't do
Dang,
no,
but
it.
no, no,
y'all
no.
taking
Don't
too
make it
long.
feel
Let's
like
get to your
I'm
point.
starting
As
like, damn, did I
I
take
just
too
wanted to
long,
say that
man?
because y'all cool, y'all really cool, y'all let people talk, y'all, but I just wanted to say, as a listener and a speaker, let's get these planes landed. So,
I
it,
appreciate the input, bro. I'm
yes,
long
sir.
winded, so they probably following me. I need to get
Somebody made a
straight to the
poll
point.
and said I
No,
was
but see,
long
you the
winded.
host,
I
so
didn't
you
even
can
know
be
I was
long
long
winded.
winded. I don't even really
but
talk.
but but as I was saying, just to
Damn.
get to what I'm saying is, I actually saw a statistic, either earlier this year or last year. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, so please don't quote me on the numbers. But you guys are exactly right. And before I get into that, I just want to point out the last space that I was in. I remember Wani was just talking about how white, when the guy came into space talking about black fathers and giving all these false statistics, how a few people in the space was saying how the FBI don't report white crimes as much as they do. We have a perfect example. I live in the state of Georgia, not too far away from where this shooting just happened. This was a white kid. I can guarantee you they're going to go right into the whole mental health narrative. He was bullied. He had anxiety. He had a troubled past. He had a troubled childhood. He didn't have anyone to talk to. He didn't get enough hugs. They're gonna give him the whole little, $1 billion of whiteness kind of thing. And I knew he was white when I found out that he was safely taken into custody. I'm like, oh, so he killed four people. And to my understanding, what I saw on the news, he was at school, left, came back and shot and shot those people. So he was able to leave and come back and still kill people. And after he did all that, he safely got taken into custody. And so we already know what time it is with that. So as far as the attraction thing, the statistic that I was talking about that I saw, and again, I don't have it directly in front of me, but I saw that over 50%, I think it was even up to 60, of white males, um of white males from the age of 18 to 30, I believe was the range, all either are virgins or they have not had any type of sexual experience, and they're angry about it. They're literally angry about it. They're angry. They're upset. They're unhappy. They feel less than. And we live in a society now where if you can attract women, you're automatically considered a failure. You're automatically considered a loser, a failure. People tease you when you're at school. You have friends that, they have conversations behind your back like, oh, he's scared to kiss a girl, or he's never even kissed a girl before. Or he's never even, kids bully each other about stuff like that. And that vitriol begins to build up inside of a child, especially when you have somebody who's a young teen, and everything is based off what other people think about you. I mean, even as adults it's still like that, but as a child everything is even more basically based off what your friends think of you. You want them to think you're cool. You want them to think you got a lot of girls that that's in the rotation that you talking to. You want them to think y'all going to the movies and doing little stuff in the movies that people we all used to do. Well, I ain't gonna say all, but a lot of us used to do. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Just little stuff like that that we all did as teenagers and stuff like that. So that being said, yes, these kids are upset. They are angry. There's data that shows that young teenagers are not, they don't have any sexual contact even past 18. Like there are grown men out here 24, 25 years old that really haven't had any kind of sexual experience with a woman. Seriously, they haven't. And that can take a toll on a man's mental health, and this is the issue. It's only going to get worse because now we live in a society where relationships are very transactionally based. And see, the issue is with this, and I'll land my plane with is this. And I want everybody to pay close attention to this. I'll say back in the day, probably like 10 years ago, women like men for men. And when you were younger, when you're 17, 18 years old, you kind of get more of a pass when you're dating because at 17, 18 years old, you're not expected to have nothing. Nobody expecting you to have
Facts.
no, yeah, nobody's expecting you to have to drive no Mercedes. Nobody's expecting you to have no job making 100K a year. Nobody's expecting you to have your own apartment. Nobody's expecting you to be able to be a alpha male provider. Nobody's expecting that of an 18-year-old boy coming out of high school. So if you meet a woman that likes you, she's okay with you being broke. She's okay with you not having a high paying job. She's okay with you not even having a car. If she like you enough, she's like, you know what, baby, I got a car. I'll come pick you up. I got an apartment. You could come to, or you can come to my mama
No,
house.
no,
You
no,
can
no,
come
no,
to. I
now,
got a
now, hold
cousin
on. You're
that'll
going
let
too
us
far.
come over there and kick it or whatever the case. They you get so much more wiggle room when you're that age. When you start getting older, 25, 26, 27, nigga, where your car at? Oh, you still stay with your mom? Who? You still now it's all these boxes you gotta check. And so now it's getting to the point to where now these girls at 17, 18 years old, like, if you want my phone number, you're gonna have to get my damn nails done at 18 years old, 19 years old. And a lot of that comes from music. A lot of that comes from this prostitution culture, as I call it,
Facts.
the sexy red and the Meg the Stallions and the city
Who's
girls
talking? The
and the,
womanizer
if he
person?
Mm-hmm.
really love you, he'll get you what
Oh,
you
okay.
want, and if
Makes
he
sense.
really like you,
You gonna
he'll
Y'all
land
pay
just
that
your
going
plane
down here
phone
so
soon?
much
You've
bill
been
about
talking
black
if
for
he
women.
7
really
minutes.
like you.
It's a 50
You
shades
try
Just
to
of
tell
start
us
getting
about
into
our
all of that.
planes.
And so now your
right.
This
value
is
His
is
plane
based
ain't
this is
landed
upon how
yet.
much.
hilarious. This is I am
This is
about to
spirit.
burst out laughing.
He flying spirit.
Yo,
I
you
mean, am
are a
I lying or am
hypocrite.
I telling
No,
the
you're
truth?
telling the
Yes,
You
you're
truth.
are a
going down your
hypocrite.
womanizer
This
ass
is where we are.
commentary.
This is
2029.
where we are
This
in
is the
our culture.
commentary of
We
womanizers.
everything is transactional.
Hey, yo,
It
Everything,
went it
like
went
you talked
it,
from
over
the
it- and
7
students
it
I,
starts
I,
minutes.
young.
I,
Land
to
your
nails.
plane.
Go ahead, Professor. Go
Land your
ahead.
plane.
oh, I was
You've
just
been
gonna
talking for
say,
seven minutes.
I was gonna say,
I'm sorry. I'm just
yeah,
playing.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say you made some good points, but I just want to kind of add on to that quickly. We can move to the next person. Um, what? Because I think something was no, you didn't miss, but it's a missing element. An element that we're not taking in consideration, and I'm this is coming from my master's degree in educational psychology. One of my favorite classes I took was the psychology of motivation. What motivates people? Now, what motivates a little boy? Let's be real. Sex, right? So let's think about. I'm gonna think about when I was in high school. Like
I
I,
was in the toys.
what
What
I
kind
had
of
the little
toys was
boy.
you
I
I
knew
into?
somebody was gonna say that.
what little
mm-hmm.
boys played with
Trucks,
toys,
I hope.
Legos,
At 17 years
GI
old?
I
Wait, what
really,
Joe.
happened?
I,
Okay.
No,
I really
I,
Oh, you
found
were
she
still
said. I
playing
mean,
like,
he said little boys.
oh, I
It
thought he
was a
was
joke,
saying,
but it was a joke. I was
but he
just
said
joking
high
about what he
school, so
I
I
said.
really
was
want to hear what the
confused. I'm
professor
sorry.
has to say. I really want to hear the psychology of how they think. I would.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
go
it's
ahead,
gonna
Professor.
it's
Go
gonna
ahead.
make sense. So little boys look, shit. I'm grown as hell. So now 16 years old. Sexual contact with a female is a very strong motivational factor, right? So back when I was coming up in the late '90s, early 2000s, we didn't have as much access to porn as they do now. And guess what? Guess what that did? You had to go sneak and watch porn. You know, I'm from the ghetto. We didn't have the internet. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that what that did in a way was, and I think God intended it that way, was motivate me to get my shit together to get with somebody that's going to give me what to help me satisfy natural urges. But now these little boys are over pornified. And what is that from a psychological standpoint? It's taking away motivationary factors initially. So, I don't even need to talk to her. I'll just go look at this on this. I'll watch this video. But porn builds a tolerance just like drugs. And all of a sudden, like the gentleman said, you're 30 years old, living in your mom's basement. You don't really have none because you've been satisfying your natural hierarchy of need in mama's basement, and you're like, I want a female, and the culture has passed you by. Like he said, there's a culture of commodity. um I would say it's really kind of both ways, but the culture of America is like based on what you have, and it's so ironic because we don't have anything. Like Wani said, our money is dried up. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add to.
And
I
so
forgot who was
they
next.
don't have communication skills. They don't have interpersonal skills. They're not learning how to interact with women is what you're saying. Is that part?
And
Yes,
wait,
ma'am.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
real
Because they
quick,
have an
let me.
easy
Wait,
they have an
let
easy
the
way out.
professor just please just let him tell me. I'm just trying to get this point. I'm trying to get it.
You have an easy way out. Like females and males are different, but it's an easy way out. Dealing with rejection is hard as hell. And instead of when I was a child, I could be I'm gonna call it a coward. I could be a coward and not talk to females, but I'd be at home by myself. I didn't have porn to run to. You know what I'm saying? But now these little boys are over pornified. They have a way out, which is not a good thing. And by the time that catches up with them, they're too old. It's creating this culture.
So real quick,
Hopefully that makes sense.
I just wanted to say real quick, Professor, to build
Hey,
on
hey,
what you
hey,
just
I
said.
just want to say,
You are exactly right,
womanizer,
and what
womanizer,
Nikki also just
you
said.
a
That's
hypocrite.
that
You
drives the
talk
point.
for
Hold on,
seven
coach. We come to you, bro.
minutes.
That drives the point all the way home. Uh, back in those times, the bottom line of it is this: if you wanted to talk to a girl, you had to walk up and ask her her name, ask her her phone number, then pick the phone up and actually talk to her on the phone, and she has to like you based off the personality that you create over the phone. It wasn't these days these kids will literally sit here and text each other all the way up to seeing each other, be on their phone the whole time and text each other all the way until they get home. Everything is texting. There's no real human interaction. And I'll land there.
Do you realize that I just realized when you said that, Professor, that this is all by design? You think
Absolutely.
about the LGBTQ and what they're pushing on us. I think this is by design so that less babies are born. I think, yeah,
Hello.
they don't want people interacting with each other. They don't want men. They don't want men around women. They don't want men to be masculine. They don't want women to be feminine. Well, it's more an attack on manhood, I feel, but it's actually by design so more children aren't being born. That's what this is
And
about.
let me prove it to you. I'm an '80s baby. If y'all are anywhere near close to my age, y'all know that those little nudie magazines and videos used to be expensive as hell. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of proves that there's a strong urge, there's a market for it. So my daddy taught me nothing's for free. So why in the hell is porn free all of a sudden? They're being generous? No. It's not, generosity is not involved. It's part of the business model of lowering the population. Don't get with a girl, don't make a child. Go home.
And it's
Here's a
funny.
cell phone.
And like I said before,
Can I
Look like a
elaborate on
freak
that?
watching that
and
shit.
we get
Can I
and we
elaborate?
get
Go
caught
ahead,
up in
Ron.
the trends as well because now we have nig cells, which, like I said, whatever America does, we end up, caught up in it. Go ahead, Juicy.
You didn't
Even with
say
the
Nick
whole
Sales.
no, seriously, because the West is promoting a hypersexual society. They're coming after the children at this point. When you give the LGBT a inch, they want a mile. Now they want to convert children into a hypersexual lifestyle as a normalcy, and that's not the case. Most of us inherently are not hypersexual. I'm sorry, I was raised in a Pentecostal apostolic doctrine. You kept your legs closed until you got married. That's how we was. And so you had to have social skills. You had to be a man who had his shit together, quote unquote, before you can even bring a woman into the fold because you were responsible for taking care of said woman who was going to bear your children. So those are the traditional values that I grew up on. But if we are not raising our sons to be husbands, and we are not raising our daughters to be wives, and you're allowing social media and TikTok to have more influence over your children than you do, you give them full range with this little phone, this little device that we're having a constructive conversation with. Now, as adults, this is what we're doing. But when you give it to children and you let the enemy open up channels and gateway right into your child's mind and psyche, you shape them into believing that it's normal to have your asshole out, get it sexy, and all that shit. That's what you leave them to be exploited to. We don't. But another thing that has to be understood by young ladies is that sex is a health requirement for men, not us. So we can go weeks and months and years without having sex and nothing physical is really going to have us happen to us. But you may have some frustration or some shit build up, but not really. But men will have a physical issue if they are not experiencing release. And so now they've got all this masturbation, overkill, which is damaging, to be truthfully honest. And a lot of men don't understand that. But they don't have a way to release because there's not programs or or social influences that promote healthy men and women interaction, young adult, adolescent interaction. You know how they had what they call the concubines. What the hell that was called? Y'all know about the debutantes. Excuse me, I said concubine. Lord Jesus, the debutantes. It's late, y'all. Please don't. I'm talking about concubine. What's a concubine? Somebody said that in one of the space and shit's coming out of my mouth. But anyways, they used to have the debutantes and these little kind of like events, introduction events and stuff like that. We don't have that stuff no more. Our kids don't even know how to interact with each other, like he said, outside of text messaging. They'll text even while they sit next to each other. I'm like, y'all right next to each other. Why the hell y'all texting? He right here. So that's the way that they communicate. And so that's a big problem because when they have an issue, you don't know how to say what you need to say out of your mouth. You let your thumbs do it. But this is, for another conversation. But I'm a huge supporter of Dr. Welsing, and I really truly feel like the black woman's womb. There is a war on the black woman's womb, and there also is a
Yes.
war against the man's the manhood of our black men. The Dems are full of, you know, emasculated men or LGBT members, um, which I feel like, they won't even prop you up. They don't want a heterosexual, dominant alpha man that stands on business of providing and protecting at all costs, right? The village type of thing, You have to be docile, emasculated, and allow the woman to take the lead. You see how that is? So yeah, it's a much bigger
It's in
thing than that.
reverse. And
Yep.
one more thing before I move on to the next speaker, we did a study in Memphis that found out a psychological study to find out that women in the black community in Memphis, Tennessee, and I would argue this is across the country, have been conditioned, socially engineered vis-a-vis the media to all want the same guy. So not the same guy, but the same type of guy. They're all looking. They've been um, 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 conditioned is a word. Conditioned to look for the same profile of guy. Um, Kevin Samuels kind of touched on that a bit, but what I'm gonna say is that is a very evil social conditioning because mathematics, the law of probability proves that you're not going to get the same guy. Black women are starting to be conditioned to look for the same guy, the same way that our young black boys are conditioned to all want to be in the NBA and NFL, and it's based on probabilities. You're not going to get them, and that wastes your time. That lowers your probability of having kids, and it's all part of an insidious plan to, in my opinion, to lower population in certain demographics. Now, the sad thing about this in our land is that's one part of the plan. Another part of the plan is food. Another part of the plan is porn. So we're being attacked from so many vectors, like it's overwhelming. I don't know who was next. Coach, I
Yeah,
think.
coach was trying to
Yeah,
elaborate.
yeah. I really appreciate this space. My late mother and a lot
Is
of
Coach
the
speaking?
adults.
Yes.
Yeah, coach is speaking right
Okay, I'm
now.
dropping
Yeah,
down.
Can you
come right
I
hear
back
me?
don't
up,
know what's
What
Juicy.
going
is
on with
going
spaces.
on?
Yeah, Coach, we hear
Come
you.
right
Okay.
back up, Juicy.
My, can you hear me?
Go ahead, coach. We're sorry.
Yes.
Somebody's
Go
talking.
ahead.
Oh, no problem. This stuff man made. I don't be tripping. I usually get kicked out of these spaces. I'm shocked I'm still in here this long. My late mother and other family members and neighbors, y'all just really prick my conscience because I mentoring youth, coaching youth football in the city almost 20 years, and now it's like I'm really gonna get with some guys that I used to coach with, and some of the teen moms and dads. We're gonna have to start doing what our parents did: chaperone and promote and host youth events for our people. I appreciate this space. Like that just hit
Yes,
me.
Coach.
That just
Dances. You're right, bro.
that
Yes, we
just hit
need
me in my
more.
soul just now.
We do. We need
Uh,
more
it's our
matchmaking.
responsibility. Yeah, it's our responsibility. That's why I got the hashtag going, hashtag Operation Delineation, because what we realize is like I've never heard baby mama growing up. I'm 54 years old, and I never understood that. And just doing the research, that shit come from the Caribbean. That ain't part of our culture. We know who our moms and dads are. The fuck. And I'm glad we're updating our information in real time. And it's a process. We're self correcting our own mistakes, and motherfuckers is mad about it. It's like if I was a drug dealer, I wouldn't want my goddamn customers going no goddamn rehab. I'd be out of business. And back to uh, us telling our real life experience. No more sugarcoating shit, y'all. No more just go to school, get good grades, everybody your friend. You graduate, get a good job, marry, white picket fence, happy 25 years, you get to go watch the end. No, we gotta tell our unsugarcoated life experience on this goddamn soil. Cause we leave in our I know if my parents would have told me they real life experience coming from North Carolina to the city of Philadelphia and everywhere else they lived, they wouldn't allow me to get bused 5 miles out my neighborhood to these fucking troglodyte Neanderthals under the US Census classified as white European mafia peasant criminal schools to get psychologically motherfucking mistreated. I was unarmed with the information. And during our history, our ancestors never wanted to live around these motherfuckers. Integration, like fucking self-destructed us. Being around these motherfuckers, picking up their behavioral patterns and all of this weirdo shit. I'm glad we delineate, cause we don't do this shit. We gotta tell our children these are your fucking open enemies, even if they of our own lineage. So they armed with the information to know how to navigate this shit. And my stomach always dictated to the women that I dealt with and married. And I got two ex-wives and only one son on the planet. And if anything happens unjustifiably to my son's demise, y'all won't hear from me, but y'all hear from me. I'm going eye for an eye. A lot of this shit will stop. You kill my son, I'm damn sure going to kill a whole lot of yours. On this recorded app, my family know it. Don't fucking send no Ben Crump to me. I don't want to talk to no lawyers. Go talk to his mama. Motherfuckers talking about, well, George Zimmerman's still walking around. What's his fucking daddy didn't do? What the fuck you want us to do? Ain't no goddamn way I'm going to goddamn bury my son. You killed him unjustifiably, goddamn it.
Yes, and we know you're just
I'm
speaking
wiping all y'all the fuck
hypothetically,
out.
Coach, and we understand that, and we understand that you're speaking
No, I'm
hypothetically,
not on no hypothetical. This is accurate. I already got the plan devised in my goddamn head. I think about it all the time.
and you're telling us this,
This ain't
and,
this,
and,
this
and
ain't
we're
this ain't no
listening to you.
hypothetical.
We're listening to you, and it's we know this is
So
a
so what I'm
plan.
what, what I'm saying is
We don't want
my
nobody to come
stomach
pick you up.
dictated to the women that I've always dealt with. If you can't cook greens like my mama, my grandpop, my pop, I ain't fucking with you. I didn't know nothing about no delineation or none of that shit. I just knew that I like baked chicken, barbecue chicken, cornbread, homemade, baked macaroni and cheese, no fucking mac and cheese. I don't know where the fuck that came from. Collard greens, mashed potatoes and gravy. Like if you can't cook that, I wasn't fucking with you. And I know a lot of this fucking negative propaganda they promote those who are so-called successful and wondering why all the fucking wealth is leaving out their family trees, i.e. Kobe Bryant, i.e. Robert Frederick Smith, the billionaire that paid for the HBCUs. All that wealth gonna go out our family tree. Fucking Byron Allen, yeah, Dave Chappelle, yeah, all these motherfuckers marrying outside the fucking family tree lineage and wondering why we got fucking problems. No, don't follow them motherfuckers. Speak my piece.
Um,
What you get? Go
I
ahead,
was
Juan.
just going to say, I find it interesting that the FBI knew this child. They were called over there before and saw all the guns and all of his activities and said they were monitoring him. I find it strange that a lot of these cases, the FBI has already been made aware, basically don't do anything, and the parents are well aware of it, and somehow these children end up with these guns. That damn gun is bigger than that whole child. That boy is little and had to be very mixed up, and you know he was racist. I notice a lot of these incels that do these things, they always manage to kill someone black. There's no way somebody that boy looking, he looks like a boy, really, should have been doing all that. I mean, come on. The FBI is up in your face, your parents are up in your face, and yet you still manage to outsmart the FBI and your own parents at that age?
Well, Wanting, when you say that, you make me think of MK Ultra, and I need to make a space on MK Ultra. I don't know if y'all are.
Hello.
Yes, sir. I was gonna say. I hope y'all are aware with it. But in just quickly, MK Ultra was a study, a project done by three-letter agencies to see how you could use drugs and deep hypnosis to create assassins. What better perfect
The
assassin?
movie Manchurian Candidate. Go watch it,
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
fellas.
There it is.
the
Yeah.
original
So
one.
if they started on MK Ultra in the '50s, where in the hell do they think we are now?
Willis.
If you think Get Out has some MK Ultra in there, deep hypnosis. What you got? Bad news. You hear me? Bad news.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm in the hallway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there are different states. I was reading a little bit about it. It's different states of deep hypnosis where allegedly you can be programmed to carry out tasks without you being aware of it. And I'll tell y'all some interesting shit. Bobby Kennedy, John F. Kennedy's younger brother, got killed by a guy. He was an Arab guy. I can't think of his name. It was the same name
Lawrence
over
Word.
twice, but that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that guy shot him, allegedly shot him, and then like was like, "What are y'all talking about? I didn't shoot anybody." You know what I'm saying? So there's some speculation that he was MK Ultra. Um, and the Kennedy family, tried to get him out of jail. So what is that about? Did they know? So MK Ultra is, I wonder where they are with that stuff. You know what I'm saying? We're living
Well, I
in a
don't
very
know.
interesting
It
time.
seems
You
very
got
strange.
motherfuckers on drugs, man. You can't tell me that like I understand these drug rehabs and all this shit. They using experimentation on these people, man. Like before, uh, there's a book out here in the city of Philadelphia called Acres of Skin.
You there, brother
I
Coach?
can't hear anything. Is it me?
No, I can't either. Coach, you there, bro?
Um, I,
Yeah, his
in-
face acting
I
up.
invited him up.
Keep getting a
Yeah,
message. I can hear everybody now, but
interesting. But yeah, like Coach was saying, there's been a lot of experimentation. There's like a state of mind called the alpha state. There is alpha, beta. I get them confused. Omega state, but it has to deal with brain waves
Delta,
and
theta.
delta. That's it. That's it. Is that the one where they can program you to like
I forget
be an
which
assassin?
one they do the programming in, but I used to be into brain entrainment.
let me go find the chart because it's actually a chart that my sister's a behavioral clinician and she sent me the
Okay,
chart.
great. Thanks.
But isn't that
So does
like
that
the
stuff
divine
like
nine? Do they
go
call
ahead?
themselves like those type of name, those terms too?
Oh, that's just Greek letters, but a delta like is a different. I'm not now. I'm getting out my area of expertise, but it's just different patterns of your brain waves. So, like basically on one of those waves, maybe it was delta. You can be programmed to commit a task. And I was reading some shit so heavy. It said that, and this is an old book, guys. Like in the '80s, they were programming assassins, but also they were programming prostitutes, like really beautiful, high class prostitutes. Some of which were married to have sleep. And this is just from a book, but to have affairs with like high profile people, Congress people, and stuff like that. And the women would be programmed to show up to the house, do their business, and then walk out the house and be like, "Where was I? What was going on? Where was I?" So and then go home to their husband. These people are, real evil.
You know, can y'all hear me?
Dang,
Okay.
Yes.
your voice deep
Yes,
heavy.
sir.
That scared the mess out of me, that deep voice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean no harm. Uh, um, you know, I know the conversation is going in this direction, but I had some comments on the previous statement that was made about over sexualizing our children, and they don't have to do the things we did before the technology came. You know, you 14, 15. Hey man, let's, you know, you talking to a sister. Hey, let's go to the ice cream shop. And you catch the bus there, and having to convince her that it would be, you know, a good use of her time. Let's go to this pier and watch the what's the names or the time when the woman touched your when the girl touched your leg, yeah, you was talking to she touched you like, oh man, you got chills like, all of those types of moments that inspired these love songs. That just one touch and all type of just, you know, um, a lot of that has been taken away with this. So it's really anti-social media because what we had to do to, when I made a joke, when you said about what little boys, I said, man, I was in the toys. I ain't started liking girls until they chest stopped looking like mine. Okay. In the sixth grade, I slow danced with this girl the whole dance. We were both sixth graders. We slow danced through the fast songs. I was in love. It wasn't nothing. It was later on.
Back down
You
memory
talking too good.
lane.
You talking to a sister and she just touch your arm and it just it's inspiring all that good energy. They're missing out on that now because of these videos that they can watch. It poisons that emotion that inspires love. It turns it into a fetish, and
Yeah,
it's not doesn't even involve love. It's dangerous
I want to kind
because
of pigback off that. You're right, bro. And like we were saying earlier, it's this is specifically engineered. And I'm about to say some shit that's gonna blow y'all mind. This is socially engineered to create what I think is trying to do is create a country full of nihilists. Now there are some theories on that. I don't want to get off into conspiracy theories, but um, let me prove my point. So, like he was saying, the whole slow dancing and the proper way of courtship, as my granddaddy would say, has been taken away and in a lot of ways reversed. Who I like to follow sometimes is Dr. Shaharzad Ali. The Muslim woman who wrote "Are You Afraid of a?" What was the book?
She says she has a book about the understanding black men and understanding black women. Yeah,
Yes, her.
I've got her
It's
books. I
called
just
Sharzad
Black
don't know.
Man's
I don't remember.
Guide. Black
Yeah,
Man's
the
Guide to
guy.
Understanding the Woman and the Woman.
Black Man's
Black
Guide.
Woman's
That's what I
Guide
was
to
trying.
Understanding the Black Man.
Okay, so Sharzad, thank y'all for that. Sharzad recently did an analysis of sexuality, in the black community, and she said the young people now, words are important. Everything is based on words. We've covered this before, but the terminology has changed from making love to beat it up. So she's like, wait a minute, that's not love. And Sharzad said that the human beings are the only uh, group of mammals who make love face to face. She said that's the way it was designed, but now like the media industry is promoting all sorts of violent shit, man. Like um, snatching hair and there's spitting in people's mouth and is promoting choking, like a whole bunch of choking, you know what I'm saying? And that has nothing to do with sexuality. Choking somebody,
It definitely has
you know what I'm
nothing to do with
saying?
procreating.
That's what I meant to say. There you go. But Sharzad just kind of she posited that that's part of this social engineering to make us like on some deep psychological level really hate each other. Like, oh, I can't wait to get home so I can choke you. What the hell? Go ahead, Andy.
We've disconnected sex from relationships, and that's what the sexual revolutions did. It was nothing freeing about that. It was it was a tenet of alienation of humanity. So once you disconnect sex from a relationship, you just make it another act a la carte. It can be for procreation, it can be for perversion, and it can also be for violence. And what you're looking at from the incel standpoint, from their sense of entitlement, they feel they should be able to take it, take sex. If you go into that rabbit hole of that community, most of their sexual fantasies are prefaced on violence and domination in a sexual relationship. I didn't say a relationship, I said sexual relationship. because this is the crux of their argument. They're upset when they see that their virginity is an act of humiliation encouraged by women, that women are humiliating them by withholding their bodies from them. That's why a lot of this legislation is being changed to mirror these thoughts. So when you say we're creating a society of nihilism, I don't see how you can see it any other way. Even people my age um, don't want to communicate anymore. They'd rather you text them. They'd rather you call them. People want you to send them sexual pictures. Just disconnecting the whole sexual act from humanity, from our bodies, from ourselves, from our emotions, from our spirituality. And this is not me being religious. I'm just saying once you do that, you reduce sex to an act of animalism, and this is something that they're
Yes, that's a key word.
animalism. And I want you to talk about how the animalism also plays out into homosexuality. This is not me talking about gay people. I'm talking about homosexual, the sexuality being weaponized. They're weaponizing heterosexuality. They're weaponizing homosexuality, and they're wanting us to accept various other forms of sexuality, such as bestiality, abuse of children. It's just no limit when you disconnect sex from what it's supposed to be, and all it can become is a weapon.
Yes, nihilism. That's, and I tried to find this article the other day. I just want to hit myself in the head for not taking a picture of it. But there's a book. Well, first and foremost, it's a very long story, but I'm gonna try to shorten it. Lincoln, President Lincoln was losing the Civil War. Long story short, Lincoln met with Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass said, "I got a solution for the war. Here goes the slave. You can use the slaves, but not so fast. You got to give us our freedom." So Lincoln was forced to sign Emancipation Proclamation. That kind of set a dominoes just crashing down. A general named William Tecumseh Sherman taking command of the Southern Brigade and just saying, "Fuck it, I'm gonna burn the South to the ground." Tecumseh Sherman also said, "You know what? These black people, they need something. I'm gonna give them Special Field Order 15, which gave us land on the coastline and a mule, right, acres of land." Long story short, allegedly there was a secret society whose objective was to never let the black man and woman rise again. If you think about it, we used to run the world for a very long time. And let me say something as a historian, a little sidebar. This European reign for like the last 500, 600, 700, maybe 1,000 years. Nah, it wasn't 1,000. 500 years in comparison with time, that has been like a drop in the bucket. Like this has not been a long time. We ran the world for who knows millions of years. This is like a hiccup. A lot of historians call this, with respect to the black man and woman, they say we're an intermission. I like to put it that way. Well, anyway, so Andrew Johnson was Lincoln's vice president. He was a Dixiecrat, or that's the Democratic Party. Lincoln was a Republican. Back then, they used to run on the same ticket, which I think would be a good idea. Well, anyway, Andrew Johnson allegedly said this breaks the rules. There's Lincoln is helping the black man and woman rise to power again, and Andrew Johnson met up with a traitor who was in his same secret organization that goes unmentioned. This traitor's name was Albert Pike. There's statues all over the DC of this guy. Albert Pike was an occultist, an attorney, and a Civil War Confederate general who was being tried for war crimes. Well, anyway, Andrew Johnson reached out to Albert and said, "Lincoln, I'm paraphrasing, Lincoln lost his mind. He's raising the black man and woman." And Albert said, "I got a solution for that." So they reached out to one of their little secret society brothers, a guy named John Wilkes Booth. Y'all heard of him? In Knights of the Golden Circle, John Wilkes Booth had access to Lincoln and blew him away. So basically, why I brought that up is uh, Albert Pike um, wrote a book in the 1800s for his secret society, but you can get it now for some reason, called Morals and Dogma. I think Morals and Dogma was written in the 1860s. Y'all can fact check that. But in Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike outlined a plan to create a new world order, novus ordo seclorum. And in his plan, that was very detailed, written in 1860. He said, and I'm paraphrasing him, this plan needs to be done in three movements. He said, first, you need to destroy the czars in Russia. The czars in Russia used to be very powerful. They were very powerful, and they were Christian. Um, they had a very powerful Christian dynasty. So he said the first step is you need to have a war on the czars in Russia, and you need to destroy that czarist regime and create communism. Okay, that's step one. After that, step two, Albert Pike said you need to, now that Russia's down, you need to go into Germany and eliminate the Nazi Party and create a homeland for the Jews. Create a homeland for the Jewish population, and yeah, that's that. So that was part two. Now the third part was he said now that the Nazi party has been destroyed. Now that the Tsarist Russian party has been destroyed, and the Jews have a homeland, we need to spike division between the Jewish faith and the Muslim faith. And when a war happens between those two, um, uh, we're going to create nihilism is going to rise in the West. We're going to create nihilism, and when nihilism gets to its highest point, um, somebody's going to rise to power. I bet y'all can guess who that somebody is. Well, sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, whatever. But if you look through the epic of time, that's exactly what happened. World War One was all about was initiated when the czar when Tsarist Russia got assassinated and a fight broke out and Russia got overthrown. The Communist Party rose to power. Let me tell you some shit I found out the other day. I found out that Karl Marx, the creator of the Communist Party, was a known Luciferian, which I thought was interesting. Like used to have seances and all that type of stuff. Well, anyway, that was World War One was first part of Albert Pike's plan. World War Two, what happened in World War Two? We all know it. The Nazi Party got overthrown, and the Jews got a homeland in Israel. Right now, what's happening right now? The Middle East is fighting, and nihilism is on the rise. So is that material fact? Not necessarily, but it's very fascinating because according to Albert Pike, we're going to go into a novo order seclorum, a new world order based on nihilism, and that kind of looks like where things are going. I hope I'm wrong. Um, East Sisters.
It's Eastsiders.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Thank
got my
you very
glasses
much
on,
for
bro.
having me.
Sure.
Appreciate the space. A couple things I wanted to point out to y'all. The answer to y'all question about these mind altering, experiments that they were using. One of them was MK Ultra, the mind control. Another one was Operation. That came on Operation Paperclip, and then with the programming for television programming was Operation Mockingbird. Those are the those are some of those experiments that they were using for television and everything and marketing. And they also used that into our music. They incorporated it into the music, because they see how it affected the people, from let's say from the incarnation of hip hop, let's say 73 to about 90, 91. You were hearing things that was uplifting the people to some relative degree. Around 91, there was a secret meeting that took place. It was supposed to be a secret anyway, but an artist came out with this story and explained how they were all given contracts. You know, if they sign those contracts, they go on to wealth, but they have to promote a certain image of our people. In order to maintain fame and all of this other stuff and push this agenda. Those who didn't accept the contract left the room immediately before they continued. Basically one of the things wanted to point out is that um, as far as that the FBI knowing about what these supremacists are doing or suspected supremacists are doing, they they allowing them to because they hate us more than they love their own children. And they show us time and time again the disdain they have for us because they allow these things to happen. If you notice, every one of us that get caught up on some conspiracy stuff, even without proof, they'll come and grab us and keep us until they can find proof or make something up. You know, they even did that with Larry Davis. If anybody remember the Larry Davis story of 1986, we ended up shooting 6 cops out of self-defense because they forced him to sell drugs and stuff like that in New York. But that's a whole nother subject. But I'll land my plane there. I just thought I'd point that out. Thank you for your
Appreciate it,
time.
bro. And some really good points, and it's very interesting. John Horace, what you got, bro?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I know I came in kind of late. I just, for the mass shooting that happened, let me guess, it was another white supremacist little incel. He basically shot up the school, right? It's the same thing.
Well, we did see one of the victims, and he was black, so,
Oh
and
my,
the shooter was white, so
okay. Yeah,
it
y'all.
does look like it's racism, but we'll see what the other victims look like.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, for the when it comes to the incels, I mean, look, these little racist incels, they feel entitled to women. That's how the white supremacists are. They just feel entitled. Like, I don't have to work for anything. I'm white and I say so. I'm white and I'm supposed to have things handed to me. That's just how it is. I don't have to fight for anything. I ain't gotta work for nothing. And then once reality kicks in and they realize when they actually step out into the real world and they actually have to compete, they just it's just too much for them. How is it that I'm the head honcho. I'm the one that has all the status in the society. But the women ain't turning to me. They turn into the quote unquote men who are the fucking slaves. They're the fucking slaves, and I'm the fucking king, and the slaves getting more women than me. What in the hell is this? That throws them off and it just sends them up the, what I'm saying? It just sends them down the river and they just can't handle it. I had this theory about white supremacy that, it's kind of, I don't know, a lot of people may not agree with me, but I actually look at the system of white supremacy like a zoo. I look at like the white supremacist male like a lion that's in a zoo. He's born in a zoo. He's not born in a jungle. A lion that's born in a jungle is different than a lion that's born in a zoo. A lion that's born in a zoo doesn't understand how to hunt for himself. He has everything handed to him on a silver platter. He doesn't understand what it feels like to fight for a meal. His water is handed to him. His food is handed to him. His mates is handed to him. Everything is handed to him. He don't know what it feels like to actually have to fight. And then you got the out in the wilderness like us. The black man. We're in the wilderness. We don't have anything handed to us. We got to fight for everything that we have. And when the women actually see a black man that's actually successful, she understands that everything that black man got, he had to fight for it. And that's one of the most attractive things that women biologically that's attractive to women. So that's one of the main reasons why the incels they kind of go crazy when it comes to a lot of this shit. It just they feel like they're losing power, sexual power at that.
Yeah, unearned sexual power. Like our brother Tariq she says, a system of white supremacy is a welfare system, and that was one of the perks of the welfare system. I was teaching my undergrads last year that are very um, hidden in plain sight, but it's a fact that when the slave trade was abolished. So let's look at Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson had a 14-year-old girl living in the house with him and his wife, Sally Hemings, I think was her name, who he had a myriad of children by. I think our sister Wani said it was 6 kids. he had with this child. Well, that was standard practice during the colonial pre-America to do whatever you want sexually with the help. Now, when slavery was abolished, that those social elites who were used to that privilege created a little bitty colony, if you will, of mulatto and African females in Cuba. Cuba's only 90 miles off the coast of Miami, and so Cuba turned into basically a brothel until Fidel Castro kind of kicked us out. This is my point. My point is that was a privilege, a right. I don't know what's a right or a privilege, but being able having sexual access to our women was, part of the fabric, part of the to quote Tariq Nasheed, but part of the welfare system that was provided them. So what we're seeing in a relatively small increment of time is the collapse of those privileges, the collapse of hope. And in conclusion, like James Baldwin said, the black man never had a midlife crisis because we never had an illusion that the system was for us in the first place. Now, the inverse of that is the European male has always figured that everything was just going to work out, just rely on my welfare system and everything's going to work out. And times are saying, nope, not going to work out. And they're freaking out.
I just wanted to add on to what you were saying about taking advantage of the help. In the UK, a lot of the Irish maids that would work in those big country houses, they were used as sex slaves. And obviously, they got pregnant with the fathers of the houses and the sons of the houses having their way with them. And what would happen was the moment they'd get pregnant, I mean, this was really, really bad. The moment they'd get pregnant, they would throw them into one of those brothels, and they'd have to have the baby in the brothel or in the poorhouse, but mostly the brothel. And what they did was they dug up some bodies of children that were born in those brothels and also became prostitutes. And they dug up some children that were like 17 years old, six, they died of, advanced syphilis. And they said that the syphilis that they got was 10 years, advanced 10 years. So these girls were being used for sex at 6, 7 years old, beginning, and it would end up dying at 16 and 17 years old. So they're used to just using people and throwing them away like trash, just like serial killers do. They basically were killing these people and their kids. They really were. And yes, it was very odd to see Sally Hemings' little bed in that dank room, just, being sexually abused. Um, One other thing, and that's where I really learned about abortions, was that these women in those houses would have all these techniques to give themselves abortions. And the moment that they appeared to be pregnant, I mean, like they could just be sick in the morning, and or they could have a look about them and the other women would say, you look like, something's going on. They could be thrown out of the house just for that, just for someone thinking that. And they were giving themselves abortions and of course killing themselves because they didn't know how to do it. So these men have been getting away with a lot for a long time, and for them to go from that level of power to not being able to get a basic house and attract a woman and have a family. Yes, we have a lot of incels, and it's only going to get worse because they're going to have to talk to women face to face. They're going to have to say, I have this much money, you have that much money. Do you want to get together and have children? And they're not used to doing that. They're not used to even negotiating like that. They're used to, everyone knows I have money and blah, 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 and I can attract women just based on that. They're not used to the circumstances they're in.
Yeah, with Sister Wani, and that's very dangerous. There's a guy named Stephen. I don't know if it's March or Marche, but he's a Canadian Imperial data analyst. He's not political, but he just basically looks at data and draws conclusions. Well, he wrote a book a couple years ago called "The Next Civil War" because he looked at all these data-based considerations, and he said we're at the same. This 2 years ago, we're at the same place we were right before the American Revolution and right before the Civil War. So, we could be looking at some type of civil war. I don't want it, but that's where we are. John Horse, what you got?
I was just gonna say, man, one of the worst things that can happen to the white supremacists that I've came to realize is that if society breaks down, that's gonna be one of the worst things for white supremacy. Because the thing is, they need a society to keep their whole house of cards running. They need this thing. They need a system that gives them unearned benefits. If society breaks down, you're basically going to see white society go backwards. Now the thing is, if society breaks down for us, that's actually one of the greatest things that could actually happen for us. It's going to make everything back balanced the way that it needs to be. All the chaos and everything like that. It may sound kind of crazy, but I feel like in a certain sense that would bring back balance towards a lot of the relationships that we actually need to actually have. Healthy relationships, we need, in a certain sense, we kind of need catastrophe, because catastrophe is going to actually, it's going to bring out, it's going to basically get rid of all the stupid fantasies that everybody has and allow you to see that you need to survive. So, you know what I'm saying? Whoop de whoop. Yeah, you want a nigga who drive a Lamborghini and all this other shit, but no, right now you just need somebody who got a car that can get you from this point over here where everybody's shooting at to over here where ain't nobody shooting at. You just need somebody to do that. So I feel like in a certain sense, if that happens, that can be one of the greatest things that can actually help our people in our society. And it would actually destroy white supremacy, in my opinion.
You remember the Depression? They were jumping out of windows, rolling around, being Depression era gangsters and doing everything they can do and looking horrible, selling their children, putting signs up, selling their children. They did not do well during the Depression.
Yeah, yeah. I was reading an article by Dr. Amos Wilson where he said during uh, the during the transatlantic slave trade, Irish women were sold into I'm not laughing at that. I just thought about something funny, but Irish women were being sold into the indentured servitude, and they were put on these boats just similar to the slave boats. And Dr. Wilson said the Irish women had to stand, they had to go to sleep standing up on the boat, because the moment if they lay down the wrong way, they were had. um, Dr. Lerone Bennett talks about the tactics used to get indentured servants in Europe were insidious. He said they had a group of people in Europe called spirits. Now these are slave traders who were basically slaving white people. I have a reason for bringing this up, trust me. But he said that the spirits would go through the alleyways and target little girls, little white girls, and steal them and sell them, put them on boats to come over here to be indentured servants. And he also posited that the whole it's gonna blow y'all mind, but the whole y'all know that cereal Lucky Charms. He said that was a spirit tactic in Ireland. They would go to a bar and they would meet an Irish family and say, "Hey, look, there's this place across the pond um, that's at the end of a rainbow. And if you ride in the boat to this place, well, they're talking about America, but if you ride to this place, we're going to give you a pot of gold." And oh, really? But they ended up, becoming indentured servants. So the reason why I brought this up is what we finally need to grow up out of, which I think I can confidently say we have grown up out of it, especially Gen Z, is this idea that we want people to like us. That's been one of our biggest problems. We want to hold, the whole Dr. King mantra. I want little black boys and little black girls holding hands. No, 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 no. you have to consider the source. You have to look at the history of the people that you're dealing with, and if you honestly examine their history, you will see, like Wani said, they did all this stuff to each other. It's not personal. It's all about power dynamic, and your job is to make sure that you have your own power, and you know what I'm saying, not to get people to like us. I think that's where one of the main other than selfishness, I think that's where the baby boomers went wrong. It's like, let's all hold hands and walk around, when it was never about holding hands. It was always about power.
Yeah, the white supremacists, a lot of people fail to understand that their culture, they just come from a warring culture. That's just how they've always been for the last 2,000 years. You just study them, look at their TV shows, everything like that, from the Vikings, from the Romans. I mean, technically, in my opinion, I look at everything that we dealing with right now is the Roman Empire 2.0. It's the same exact thing, same exact playbook. You just look at it. We got coliseums all over the place, the stadiums, what I'm saying, the football, basketball games, things like that to keep.
And bro, they're not trying to hide it. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic. For hold on, skirt republic. Rome was a republic, and people miss that. Carry
Yeah,
on.
same thing. You look at DC, you look at the architecture of that. Yeah, it's the same thing in it, but the only difference is now, instead of having one emperor that controls everything, you have an oligarch that represents the emperor. So you have multiple emperors that are oligarchs, and the oligarchs are hidden in plain sight that people can't really see. And that's basically what we fighting. We're fighting the emperor. These people who are extremely wealthy, they don't even see themselves as citizens of the quote unquote United States. They see themselves as citizens of the planet. They control the planet. They know everything that's going on. They know about China, all that other stuff. I don't call them Jews or whatever. Now I don't get into that, but I look at it for what it is. It's basically the same exact thing. And in order for you to understand how to deal with them, you're going to have to understand their culture. They're a warring culture. You cannot deal with a warring people with kid gloves. You're going to have to deal with them on a warring front. You're going to have to deal with them like that. That's just how it is. That's one of the reasons why the Haitian Revolution was so successful, is because they understood, hey, he's at war with me. I'm going to have to do to him what he's doing to me, except I'm going to have to do it better than he's doing it. And he'll leave me alone.
Yeah, our sister Wani brought that up the other day. And I'm paraphrasing you, Wani, but you were saying something like, every culture that's gone to war with the Europeans, they become friends with. Um, it's part of the culture, and I'm not judging anybody. It all goes back to that old psychology 101 argument of nature versus nurture. What makes a person who he is? What makes a woman who she is? Is it her nature, like her genetics, or is it her nurture, her environment? The answer is it's a combination thereof. So if you look um, to the origin of the black man and woman, our genetics link back to a time on planet Earth where it was abundant food, tropical environment. I went to the rainforest in Africa, and we kind of got lost in the rainforest and deep away from people. And there were pineapples and shit just growing in the middle of it. I mean, it was like, you remember Sonic the Hedgehog, how you just running through some shit and it's like rings everywhere. It was like pineapples and shit all over the place. Like, we came from a time and space where it was no need for food. You weren't trying to steal somebody's wife. The women were abundant. Everybody was healthy, and guess what? You didn't even fucking need clothes because it felt so great outside. So that was part of our nurture. It's just chilling. Hey man, how you doing? You want something? Oh well, let me give you something because we had stuff to give. Now, if you look at the genesis of the European, there are different views on where they came from, but I think they came from that young Adrias. The young Adrias, actually, young Adrias is the name of a flower. There's an older Adrias and a younger Adrias. Well, the younger Dryas flower only grew during the Ice Age. So, young Adrias is a fancy academic way of saying the Ice Age. So, if you think about the Ice Age, with the theories of why the Ice Age was created, most popular being a comet hit Earth, boom, and sent soot and dust all around the globe, and it fell into a deep freeze for an extended amount of time. If the Europeans' ethnogenesis was during the Young Dryas, which I think it was, they would have been around during a brutal ass time with not a lot of light, not a lot of food, and very small windows to do things. What do you mean? During that young dry ice age, you only got 3 months to get to get your wife pregnant. And you need to get her pregnant at a certain time, because you don't want that baby born in the you don't want a newborn in that young and driest winter. So there goes the time. I mean, a constraint on time. I need to do this. A sense of urgency. Eros, according to Sigmund Freud, the sex drive, like we talked about earlier. Guess what? What you gotta do during that young and dryas? You gotta kill. You know what I'm saying? You gotta kill your food. You gotta kill woolly mammoths and shit and kill each other. So there goes Thanatos, the death drive. So what I'm trying to say, and Dr. John Henry Clark said this earlier, our psychologies are they're um they're totally different. Dr. John Henry Clark said the African brought the European to the table, and the African became the meal. We think that kindness is weakness. I mean, kindness is strength. Um, European psychology has proved over and over again that it views kindness as a form of weakness, and it's very important for European psychology to respect you from a military standpoint. That's what history tells me, but I digress. Anybody else want to add anything?
I think Too Black, Too Strong wanted to speak earlier.
Oh, come on, Two Black.
I think he's saying something, but I can't really hear him.
No, I don't hear anything, and the mic is on.
But there's a book that goes deeper into to everything too about the psychology of white supremacy called the Iceman Inheritance. I think that's a really good book to really get the understanding of the mental capacity of understanding white supremacy, understanding that.
Yeah, we were reading out of that yesterday, but carry on.
Yeah, I look at it like I said, these people, they come from I study Neely Fuller too. I understand that there's a difference between a white person and a white supremacist. So like, understanding white supremacy, understanding, them, because they're the ones who own and control everything, understanding their mindset and understanding they're doing things from a position of war. So you're going to have to, it's just like combat sports, or, football. You're going to have to understand their plays, and understand, you got to watch the tapes on them, like a boxing match. You got to watch the tapes of your opponent to understand how he attacks. So you're going to have to research his history, understand everything that there is to know about him in order to, understand how to move. And just the basis of what, as black men and women, specifically black men, because we're the warrior class, you're going to have to deal with the white supremacists from a standpoint of war, because everything around him moves, everything he touches moves for war. Politics,
Yeah, yes, and it's
media,
go ahead.
everything.
And it's systematic too, and I think it goes back to that operating during that younger dries when you only had 3 months to plan food, you only had a small window to get your wife pregnant. Like everything has to be at a specific time. And if you notice those European concepts of time, like go be here at this time, do this exactly this exact. If y'all think about it, that really doesn't match nature. Like, why do I have to be at work at 8 a.m. on the dot? Why am I doing this why a standardized test I got 2 hours to do? What does that have to do with anything? Well, I brought that up because it's going to be important. Um, it's important to understand the systematic nature of European psychology, because oftentimes we are kind of ace. I think it's intrinsic. It's baked within our nurture to be kind of asystematic. We are systematic, but I'm just saying not so strict and cookie cutter systematic. We have a little room to breathe. We play jazz a lot, but when you're dealing with a systematic group of people, playing jazz is a disadvantage. I mean, it's can be a disadvantage, you know.
Now, back to this school shooter. Um, MK Ultra is trending. Isn't that interesting? It's
Yeah, we talked about that, huh?
yeah, it's trending because this boy was being treated for since he was no, wait a minute. Oh, they're just talking about how these children are being treated by psychiatrists, and the FBI does know about their activities, and they are being monitored, and the parents are aware of it. Like the one at Sandy Hook. I don't think the FBI knew about him, but his parents got him the gun. His mother knew that he was autistic, and she gave him and allowed him to have access to a weapon. And
Wow.
he had arguments and stuff with her. So these are starting to repeat themselves in terms of the circumstances behind the shootings, which is very strange.
Strange indeed, Wani. Anybody else want to comment? I just brought somebody up. Who did I just bring up?
It's kind of hard for me to navigate this when I'm using my computer, so I may have to end up going back to my phone. Let me bring this person up. Okay, East Siders is coming up.
What you got, Eastsiders?
I forgot to mention the Manchurian Candidate. You know, another way that they used to program people to conduct um, assassination and everything like that. So
Hmm.
that was also important in accordance with the topic here. So I'll drop back down and I'll land there.
It seems strange that you know someone has a problem and they have access to guns. I mean, you should have the guns locked down on triple lock, knowing that that's an issue. It doesn't make any sense for all these people to know about it. And they're going to get sued, just like I'm glad that they set the precedent and they uh, sued the family of one of those last shooters. I can't keep up with him, to be perfectly honest, but he shot up something and both parents got in trouble. This is what we're going to have to do.
That would be Ethan Crumbly when his
Oh
father
yeah,
bought him a 6 hour for Christmas.
crumbly. Yeah, crumbly.
Bought him an expensive gun for Christmas.
But that just goes back to what I said. Remember, the white supremacists look at everything from a position of war. Their children are weapons. Their babies are weapons. You know, their money is weapons. Their media is weapons. Their politics is weapons. You know, schools is weapons. You know what I'm saying? They fucking weaponize everything. So I think once we understand that and we can counter weaponize everything against the white supremacists, I think we'll be okay. But we just gonna have to handle
Um,
things like that.
back to your point, and in addition, I mean, in congruency with the title with Dr. Welsing, let's look at what Dr. Welsing said about that. She said on page 187, quote, white adult males have been taught by their fathers to kill and destroy helpless animals for sport. And in turn, the next generation of white males is taught that means by which to ensure genetic survival. So yeah, it's a culture of buying guns because deep down, that genetic annihilation thing is, it's there. You know,
And then even when it comes down to that, when you actually really think about it, like I said, from a standpoint of warfare or combat, you have to realize that the white supremacists really don't want they even though they fear genetic annihilation, that's a weakness for them to understand that they fear genetic annihilation. Therefore, whatever your opponent is doing, You got to be the opposite. You don't fear being taken out. Don't ever fear losing your life. That's really what it is that they fear. They fear dying off. So, you know what I'm saying? If your opponent, if you know that your opponent, whoever it is that you fighting against, you know, he doesn't like to get punched this way, you know what I'm saying, or whatever it is that you're doing, you have to, you know, whatever it is that he's doing, utilize his weakness against him.
I agree with you, but I'm gonna push back on one thing you said. You said that their fear of annihilation is a weakness. I'm gonna say it's a strength. One really excellent thing about their culture in general is that they acknowledge facts as they are. So, oh crap, we're in danger of annihilation. Let's deal with the facts and build a plan based on the facts. You know what I'm saying? And y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we have a history of making the facts be what we want them to be. You know what I'm saying? Like Dr. Welsing said, you need to look. Foundational Black Americans need to look at the situation like a football game. She said, and I'm paraphrasing her, but she said, when you lose a football game, you need to sit, do a huddle with the coach, and say, "Man, I just got my ass whooped. Why did we get our ass whooped? Well, you got your ass whooped because your defense was trifling and your quarterback's not paying attention. Analyze it step by step in a systematic fashion instead of making up reality. You know what I'm saying? Saying that we're all equal. Dr. Amos Wilson said, I'm tempted to play an excerpt from Dr. Amos where he talks about this in great detail. Let me find my laptop. I might hold a space on Amos because he is slept on. And again, in the 90s, Amos predicted everything that we're dealing with. He even said in the early 90s, Amos said, he said, black people get rid of this idea of black and brown. He said, um, when immigrants come in your neighborhood, they're going to take it over. Like in 91, he said that.
And they were doing it the whole time. We just kept saying, okay, we'll move over here. That we didn't take it like immigrants are taking over the neighborhood. I know exactly how we took it. We took it like this area is getting bad.
That's
We
exactly what my
we
mom
did
used to
not
say.
put our finger on it. And that's exactly what my cousins in New York did. They said this Brooklyn is getting bad. Why don't we move to New Jersey? They didn't
That
put
was
their
the
finger on it and say it's because a bunch of Jamaicans and all these people are running around running amok.
and then it was a plan to get everybody to move anyway. And when they come over here, a lot of them, not all of them, but pretty much a lot of them, a lot of the Latinos, they have a conscious. They already know that they came over here to replace us. But when they come over here, I'm talking about when they came over years ago. They've always known that they came over to replace us. We were programmed, we were taught that it was a good thing for them to come over, especially if they look like us. So we didn't know that they were coming to replace us and undermine us.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not trying to pick on a generation, but the boomers, I think, really supported that ideology of let's hold hands and we're all. Even though my dad's a boomer, he used to say all skin folk ain't kinfolk. But I feel like a lot of boomers, supported that ideology of he's black and brown like me.
Yep, they got it from Frederick Douglass's mentality about a composite nation and um, just putting the notion out there that we could all hold hands. And even Martin Luther King mentioning he wants to see us holding hands. And then he said he may have brought his people into a burning building. I mean, that may not be referring to the holding hands part, but I think people did have a change of heart on some of those ideas.
Don't you feel like we think
Yeah.
shared oppression builds community?
Would you say?
I said, don't you think people have a tendency to believe that shared oppression builds community, irrespective of
Yeah.
what causes your trauma?
Yeah. And I think that we tend to think that, yes, like you said, shared oppression, they're oppressed like us. But I don't think anybody's ever thought like that other than us. We've always been the target. Dr. Claude Anderson says, quote, as competition for resources increase and blacks become more frustrated, conflicts for power, resources, or even the basic rights are developing between blacks and all ethnic groups and racial groups who rank higher than blacks in order of preference, which means everybody but us. If blacks' marginal level of subsistence does not improve, they will become the common denominator in every social class. Since the 1980s, blacks have clashed with the Arabs in Cleveland and Detroit. In early 1990s, New York and Boston were outraged over the slaying of blacks and Jews by ethnic whites. Violent confrontations between blacks, Koreans, Vietnamese, Laotian, and Cambodian merchants has arisen across the country in cities like Philadelphia, D.C., and Los Angeles. We've always been the target.
Yep. Immigration as a weapon.
Totally. I wanted to play a little bit of, and y'all tell me if you can hear this. This is Dr. Amos Wilson, an excerpt I compiled last night that I thought was real important. Deal with white men. Okay. Deal with white men. Train them to be men and not I want you to study this Irish because they're very interesting. All right, can y'all hear that?
Not really.
It's kind of muffled.
Kinda.
I'm gonna play a little bit more. If it doesn't work, never mind. Try now. They were a conquered people in their own land. The British treated them like dogs. They were serfs to the British. The British man could beat them and kick them and dare them not, to hit back. They were not allowed to defend themselves against the British. Can you hear that?
Yes, that was better.
Okay. The problem, they still have that right today. And you're going to talk, you think because you got out of slavery, the game is up. The Irish, and that game with the Irishmen and the Brits have been going on since the 1600s. And it's still going on right now. The British, yes, the British could send for an Irish man's wife and sleep with her at will. He could send for her his daughter and sleep with them at will. When the Irish were starving because of the potato drought, they weren't starving because of the absence of food. The Irish were growing more than potatoes. At the very time they were starving, they were shipping out all kinds of corn and cereal products. They were shipping out beef and cattle. You hear what I said? Why? Because the British decided that they weren't going to give those cereals to the Irish, and they weren't going to feed them the meat and the milk and the stuff. Because, as one British lawyer said, we don't want to disturb the operations of the market. And they literally did destroy over 1 million of these people. The Irish population was half what it was in 1914 compared to what it was in the 1830s. They were literally being decimated. And you think you're going to arrive at some peaceful relationship with these dogs. You got another thought coming. But because you don't read history, you can fall into that kind of victimization. If we would just love one another, what you talking about? We would just respect you. Come on. Read the history of these people and understand who you're dealing with. These people are not open to appeals about love and not seeing color. They are looking at that dollar. And that's the only thing that counts. And if it means that your life has got to be forfeited for them to get it, they're going to do it without thinking twice about it. They shipped these people after they were starving them to death. They wouldn't let them vote. They wouldn't let them be elected. They wouldn't let them practice law. They wouldn't let their children be educated. They couldn't even own property for a good while. They shipped them over here in ships, cargo ships. And they only had a space of 3 feet by 6. Yeah, you think
one packed into these holes. They packed them into these holes and stinking filth, and it was only 3 inches between 3 feet between shelves. They couldn't even hardly sit up straight. The women had to go and cross the sea, literally sitting up all night and sleeping, sitting up all night because if they fell asleep in the wrong position, they were had. They had to sit there and fight off the rapists and so forth as they came over. This was what it was about. They had to live in attics. Some attics were not even 3 feet tall. They still had to pay rent for them. Live in depth cellars. Live in alleys and build houses in alleys. The garbage was more than knee high and ankle deep. The sewage was open trenches and flowing into the street. When we got to New York, things were a hell of a lot better than they were for the Irish, I'm telling you. Yeah. And why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this, and again, just because there's some very interesting parallels here. People who've been degraded, who were enslaved and degraded, okay? And yet we look at where they are today. You see, yes. And look at the power they exercise today. And the whole bit. It says this because you come in degraded situations and circumstances. The Irish man was a poor, dirty laborer and did all the dirty work of society. And for a period of time, even the average living quality of life for black people was better than that for Irish people. In fact, the white boys would give the Irish men work to do that they wouldn't even give the black slave because they had an investment in the slave. Yes, they would have advertisements that Irish need not apply. Oh yes, Irish had the highest rates of insanity, the highest rates of alcoholism. Yes, yes, you heard of the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame? You think that's a play name? They were fighting people, man. They fought each other like cats and dogs. They chopped each other up and knifed each other and shot each other in ways you wouldn't believe that even our black youngsters have got to yet. These people used to have gang warfare that would last for a whole week, 7 and 8 days, I'm telling you. They had a riot that went on for 3 or 4 weeks. When they got to fight, they were firing cannons.
I thought it was funny. But basically, in conclusion, Amos made a point. I'm not gonna play the whole video, but Amos made a good point. He said that how did the Irish get out of the situation they in? First, they acknowledge reality, and secondly, they look for any lever of power they can find, and the lever of power, according to Dr. Wilson, that they found was social. I mean, what do you call it? What do you call jobs like city jobs? They dominated city jobs. They dominated the fire department, the police department, and according to Wilson, they still are dominating. So my question to the room is, what are our levers of power as foundational Black Americans? What lever of power can we dominate? Eastsiders, what you got?
One of those societies that they have is like a, you know how they had a fraternal order of police and everything like that. Well,
Yep.
in the old days, the Irish had what was called the Emerald Society. It was basically like a hedge fund for the Irish people who worked in those exact fields you mentioned. So it was like a severance package for those who needed it, so to speak. Now, to answer to your question, with levers of powers that we do have, well, once we codify, we can have all of them because it starts with, let's say something small like this with this election. If enough of us set out the election process to let the Democrats crash and burn, we already have their attention. Now we want them to know that we're responsible for them. Well, they're responsible for them crashing and burning, but we're the ones who help, allow it, so to speak. And next,
You know.
hmm,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say you're right. I didn't even think about that, but the foundational Black American um, population, we voted. I think we're the only group that votes as a block, right? Everybody else is kind of split.
Yes, we're the
So
only
that's
group
a
that votes as a block.
Yes.
lever of power. Very good. Carry on.
Another thing. is important to understand about power dynamics. And it's something I wanted to mention on our brother Tariq's space is that power is used as a shield long before it's used as a sword. You know, they have to have a way to insulate themselves, from any type of persecution or prosecution, but so must we. I'll land right there for now.
Yeah, Amos in another lecture, I listened to him over and over again. He said that the black males self our self or black not just male, the foundational black American self hatred is was designed specifically as a shield to the system of white supremacy. Like basically, Amos said that they rely on our self hatred because that gives a first line of defense against. Um, you know, to them. Like while we hating each other, we're not really paying attention to what's going on. Really good points.
Well,
Andy, you had something to add?
yes, I do.
Oh,
It's going to be the same point that I had previously, and I'm still going to have. It's our power of saying no. We're very agreeable, integrating, accommodating people until we learn how to socially shun, exclude, and separate ourselves. Nothing is going to change for us. And by that, I mean even the attention that we give other Black people who are allowed to speak for us. There's a certain withholding that we're going to have to begin practicing amongst ourselves and in our communities. As we run out to greet the immigrant, that's going to have to stop. And by that, I mean patronizing businesses in our clubs, things of that nature. We're going to have to withdraw our presence from all of our legacy orgs, even our sorors. I'm not going to advocate that we stop going to school, but perhaps that African teacher that teaches this course, our children don't take, you know, things of that nature. And we're going to have to keep on doing it. And within our church community, we're going to have to stop giving our money when we see they have missions that go outside the United States and outside of our community. I mean, it's going to be a wholesale stop. I don't know if people know of a certain ethnic group in Louisiana. They were called Aishmen. Only reason why I know of it because I had to be a descendant of it, and I met a teacher who was, and a few other people who were ethnic Eichmanns. And one of the things that determined this group, they were known to be insular. They did not mix with the wider community, and we were taught a certain way. Now I can see why we were taught that way because we really don't have the money and we really don't have the social capital just to utilize for ourselves. So we're gonna have to start using the power of no a lot more than we do. The brother said about not supporting the Democratic Party. Okay, in us not supporting the Democratic Party, it doesn't mean that we can run wholesale to the Republican Party. You can't support anything that does not support you. You can't entertain anything that does not entertain you. So in that we're trendsetters, that's one trend that we're going to have to create and set for ourselves. We're going to have to stop repeating whiteisms. And by whiteisms, I mean a lot of the psychological warfare that's being used against us. One of it is black pathology that hides as psychology, that hides as sociology, that just hides as regular academic discourse. You think you're militant. To be militant in the United States is to be a blunt person that when someone is discussing something with you, you look them dead in their eye and you say, no, I don't agree with you. That's the most violent thing a black person can do. And if you study it out, they have made our agreement mandatory and conditional for receiving certain benefits. So until we change that dynamic and how we inculcate, I know Professor Arthur doesn't like that word, but how we inculcate whiteness in our culture, nothing is going to change. And I mean, from our music to our sports people, I'm not talking about like a little thing. I'm talking about where we actually begin massively withdrawing our presence from society.
You said something so powerful, Andy, and what the word was no. That was a power, but that was damn near prophetic. I'm very pleased with my last two speakers because y'all really, I don't know if y'all caught that room. They really identified some solutions to the problem that we have. What excited me about Andy's response is she helped me to realize that we don't say no to these foreigners in the neighborhood vampirically sucking money out of our the gas stations on the corner. Why do you operate a gas station in my neighborhood and you're not supporting the football team, the little boy football team? Why do you have a blue beauty supply shop in the middle of my neighborhood and you're not putting a foundational black little girl through college, at least one? Why are we allowing this? We need to say no. And back to the greatest generation, that's kind of what they were doing when they did the bus boycott. They told the bus system no. And when they told the systems no, whole systems start to collapse in Alabama.
Did you notice how fast that took place? See, people think this is going to take a quantum shift. We move the atmosphere. We move the atmosphere. They're reliant on black propaganda to support this whole thing that's sitting on eggs and um, seashells. I don't know how else to describe it, but we move the atmosphere, and until we take that power within ourselves, I don't think anything's going to change. I wrote about 2 years ago. I said we really don't know the people that we're dealing with. If your grandmother can look at a her sick grandchild and vote against policy that will help her child get medical help. I don't think y'all know white people. You understand what I'm saying? There's nothing that you could make me do that would vote against care for my son. White people are not like that. They can look at their relatives starving and will vote for more and more austere policy. My contention is that black people are already living in austerity. I consider us the economic canaries in the capitalistic system. People are saying,
That's deep. That's
yes,
deep.
if it's bad for white people, can you imagine what it's truly like for us? Just like Professor Arlen said, he has 100 degrees and he's renting. And I don't think we pay attention to
Right.
to
I,
that to that violence. You know what I'm saying, Professor? Do you know that's violence? That's
that's
violence.
violence. Yes,
Yes.
that's violence.
Okay. And so
Chris
we,
Hedges says that. He said economic violence.
yes, and
Yeah.
until I get on that same bandwidth with you, and you get on that bandwidth with me, nothing changes. Now I stood up here in Irving, Texas, in a Indian conclave, in a almost Hispanic community with all kind of Asian, probably sex businesses. I'm just going to call them what it is. They can call it whatever they want. I know better. I want you all to sit here and ask yourselves, what does Andy economically participate in her community? Ask me, because I want you to really see if I live this. Nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. I spend my money in none of these local businesses. I drive so far out until we might as well be living in the city that we get all our services from because I will not support those businesses. Now, this training didn't come from me wholeheartedly. Obviously, my mom yes, my mom started teaching me the same thing that Professor Harlan is teaching me because I'm hard headed and I grew up in integration. And when you grow up in integration, you grow up with a split personality about your blackness and you do not understand how things are weaponized against you. Well, when I was about 28 years old, I had my ass handed to me and I realized I was a Negro. And from that point
Yeah.
on, I've been,
Hey, me too. It was about the same.
okay.
It was about the same age,
Yes,
Andy.
yes. I've been struggling. I have been struggling
27.
how to figure out how to live this black life. And it's like it's almost inescapable. But the one thing that I do know, and which I wish I had done this when I was much younger, is that we really need to start listening to black men and because they act as a political weather vane for our community. But you have to study it. It's not so much exactly as what they're saying, it's what's being unleashed against them. And when you can see what's being unleashed against them, you know that's coming for our whole community. And on that, I will land my plane.
What a beautiful place to end this space. Um, Andy said that black people are the canary in the coal mine. Wow. All right, I really enjoyed y'all. I learned a lot tonight. Did anybody have any closing remarks?
Thank you for holding these spaces.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thank y'all, man. Y'all really taught me a lot.
Much appreciated.
Yes, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, I will see y'all next time. I enjoyed you. All right, about to end this space. Have a nice day. Peace out.